Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar for exams and surveys in Canvas. My name is Ginny McGee, and I'm an instructional designer in the e-learning division at Camden County College. And we're going to look at how you can use the quizzes tool today in Canvas to create exams and surveys. So we're going to quickly look at an agenda here, and then we'll get into Canvas. So first, I'm just going to go over the basic quiz settings. Not going to spend a ton of time on that because I don't want to belabor something that a lot of people already know, but I don't want to not go over it. So we'll start there. We'll go over the different question types and how to use the tools in there to create the different types of questions. We'll look at question groups and question banks and how to use those and what they're for. We'll look at moderations, so how you can give students additional time on a test if they need it or an additional attempt. We'll look at how you can grade the quizzes, and then we'll look at surveys. Anonymous surveys and non-anonymous surveys can be given through the quizzes tool in Canvas. And then we'll have time at the end for questions. I'll also be monitoring the chat to look for any questions that you may have that pop up during the presentation. So if you have any questions, go ahead and type it into the little chat area on the right side of your screen, and I'll stop periodically to check and make sure if I have any questions. So let's go ahead and get out of here and get into Canvas. So by the way, this webinar is being recorded, and you will be able to find a recording of it in the Canvas Faculty Hub in the recorded webinars tab. So we've got a lot of our webinars in there that we've done that are recorded that you can always get in and look at if you need a quick refresher or if you missed one. So the first thing that we're going to do is just take a look at the test settings. And so I'm going to pull up a test here that I've already created, and we'll look at the different settings. So by the way, whenever you click on a test that you have already started within this the quizzes tab, you can click on the name of the quiz, and then you can click the edit button in the upper right hand corner. Or if you're starting fresh with a new quiz, you will click the add quiz button, and that's how you'll create a new quiz. Quizzes is the term that Canvas uses for any test like assessment. So a test, an exam, a quiz, all of those are created within the quizzes tab in Canvas. So when I click on my quiz here, I'm going to click the edit button. And the first thing that I come to is my details tab. And this is where I'm going to put my directions and then set up my different settings that I have. Now, if you're looking at this and you're thinking, that looks really different than what I've seen in my classes, if you have not been made aware yet, this is the rich content editor in Canvas, and it is changing. So we've done a couple of webinars, and I've created a training video that is in the Canvas Faculty Hub. And so this is going to be the way the rich content editor looks at the conclusion of the semester. So it's not going to be until after the semester is over, but I do want to make sure everyone is aware of that. So the rich content editor, you use that when you make an assignment, a page, a quiz, a discussion. It's found all throughout Canvas. So I'm just trying to make sure that everyone is aware that this change is coming and isn't caught by surprise one day when you go into Canvas and things look very different. So the functionality is similar, but it just has a different look to it. So with your quiz, of course, you're going to want to give the quiz or test a title up here at the top. And then down here is where you'll put your directions for the quiz, maybe some information on what the quiz is on, how much time the students have, if it's a timed quiz, and so on. And then the first thing that you're going to need to designate in the settings is what type of quiz it is. So you can do a practice quiz, That is going to allow students to get feedback, so they'll be able to see what they got wrong and right. You'll be able to see that as well, but it's obviously not going to count toward the grade. So they can see how many points they would have earned if it was a real quiz, but it's not going to be in the grade book. Graded quiz is what we're going to focus on first, but then we'll move on to looking at how to create a survey. So I'm going to leave that as a graded quiz for now. You would put your quiz into whatever assignment group, if you have assignment groups set up in your course. And now we've got our options. So you can shuffle your answer choices. Again, that's answer choices, not test questions. So we'll get to that a little later of how you would shuffle your test questions if that's what you want to do. If you would like to set a time limit, you need to check this box and then say how many minutes the students will have. Once that time is up, the test is going to get automatically submitted, and anything not marked by the student will be marked wrong. If you want to allow multiple attempts, you can do that, and you can choose what score you want to be kept, either the highest, the latest, or the average. And then here's where you can decide what you want your students to see when they conclude the test. So they can immediately, they will always see what their score was on any portion of the test that is auto-graded. So obviously not on essay questions and that type of thing, but on multiple choice, true and false, they're going to see a score immediately after they click that submit button. But you could choose to also let them see their quiz responses so they could see what they got wrong. And you also could choose to let them see the correct answers. So if you want to, you could just let them see what they got wrong, or you can choose to let them see what the answers were. And then you can also choose when you want those answers to be made visible and when you want them to be hidden again. So that way you've got more control and can make sure that everyone has taken the quiz before you allow those answers out there. So that is up to you. You can show one question at a time by checking this box. By default, all the questions will be on the screen at the same time, and students will scroll down, but this will make it so there's only one question at a time. And then you can also choose to lock the questions after the student answers it so that they can't go back and change an answer. I definitely would make sure the students are very aware that this is the case if you choose to do this, because that's not something that they see most of the time. So down here in the assign box, I actually have it set up so then this works the same way if you're doing a regular assignment as opposed to a quiz. When you are assigning it, you will first see a box down here that says assign to, and it's going to be assigned to everyone by default. And you can put in your dates. But let's say I have a student who was sick and was not able to take the test, and I need to give him his own date so that the quiz is reopened for him. I need to click this add button. And I always make a point to say this because it happens several times a semester where an instructor will forget and just get rid of this everyone box and then pick the individual student's name from the list. If you do that, this test is now only assigned to Stephanie Charles. And so this other students aren't assigned this quiz anymore. And even if they've already taken it, you're not going to be able to see their responses and their grades. So we want to make sure that we don't do that. So we're going to make sure it's still assigned to everyone. And now I click add to create a new assigned to box. And now I can pick that student's name and give her her own due date. So just a quick note. And again, that applies to assignments as well. So when I get down here, I usually go ahead and save and then get back into that quiz and click edit just in case. So it'll take me back to my details page and I can click edit again at the top. And now we're going to get into our questions. So I'm going to go over not every single question type, but most of the question types that I've seen that are used most frequently. So first of all, you will notice that you've got an option once you've created some questions to click that says show question details. What that does is basically expand all of the questions that you've created, and we'll go over each of these so that you can see the questions that you've set up, as well as the answer choices and also the correct answer that you've designated. Now, for whatever reason, and I don't know, this is kind of something that I don't love about the quizzes tool. If you've got 25 or more than 25 questions, this is going to be grayed out, and you're not going to be able to click the box to expand all of the questions. If you've got 25 or more questions, you're going to have to click on the little pencil next to each question to expand it to see the answer choices. So that's kind of a pain, especially if you're trying to sort of scan over everything and see all of your questions and answers. But that's just one thing to point out here. So in order to create a new question, you can come down here at the bottom and click this Add New Question button. And I'm going to just go over the questions that I already have set up here to show you some examples. So this first question, I'm going to click this little pencil here on the right side so you can see what it would look like when I'm creating it. So this is a multiple choice question. I can change the type of question from this drop-down menu. Multiple choice is the first choice, so that'll be the default to start with. And then down here is where I need to type my question. So when you are creating a quiz from scratch, you maybe have a quiz that's on a Word document, or you're just typing in your questions and answer choices, it can be a little time consuming. And I always point out here, you want to make sure that you put your question in this box up here, and then make sure that you put each answer choice in its own box. And so sometimes people will put the question and the answer choice right here. That's not going to give the students any way to select an answer. So you have to make sure that each answer choice goes in its own box, and then make sure that the correct answer is marked by the arrow. So just click next to it to mark that as the correct answer. And that way Canvas will know how to grade that question. So this one, again, this is a multiple choice. I believe it starts you off with 3 answer blanks, but if you need to add another one, you can always click add another answer. You could remove an answer choice. You don't want an extra blank listed there. So if you have too many, make sure that you click the little garbage can to delete it. And I do, with this question, want to make sure that I show you how to put an image into your test question. So this is where you would type your question. And now if I want to put an image in here, there already is an image, but we're just going to add another one. I'm going to click on my question area, and I want to come up here to this little image option, and I'm going to either upload an image if it's not already in my course, or if it's already in my course files, I can just click course images. But most of the time, it's probably something that you need to upload from your computer. So you would just click this upload image button, click here. It's going to find the images on your computer, and we'll just put this one in here. And then when you click submit, it's going to put it into your quiz question. So you just want to make sure that you click update whenever you're finished creating a question. And that way you can make sure that the question is saved. Again, if you have to go back in and edit it at any time, then you're going to want to click on the pencil in the upper right corner. Okay, so this next question is a fill in the blank question. So you're going to just type your question in here and just leave a blank wherever the missing word is. And then down below, you're going to need to define all the possible answers that you would accept. Fill in the blanks are a little tricky because if it's not an exact answer, including it's also case sensitive. So if someone typed red in all caps, this is going to mark it as wrong. So you would want to make sure that you are very inclusive when it comes to putting your fill in the blank answers so that they are all, anything that you would accept is in here. Again, I'm gonna click update question here. Now this next question is an example of multiple blanks. So this one is going to use brackets to separate the answer choices from the question. This one's a little tricky. So I have blank as an example of a dog, and then an example of a cat is A. And just notice you could put whatever you want in here, but you have to have a word and a number. So I could say answer 1 and answer 2, or I could just have animal 1 and animal 2 the way I have it. Just make sure that you've got a word and a number. The word, of course, should be the same in each blank, and then the number should be different, and don't put any spaces in there. It's almost kind of, you're doing a little bit of coding here. So now I have possible answers for animal 1. I put them in. So this animal 1 is a dog, so I can put all of my possible answer choices for animal 1, and then animal 2 is a cat, so now I've got my other answer choices. So you just have to make sure that you are filling in possible answer choices for both possible types of animals. And you could have as many blanks as you need to have. So I could have as many different animals in there that they have to choose as I would like. This next type is matching. So I'm going to click my pencil here. So I can match, I have this set up so that the student has to match the colors on the left with the item on the right. So there's my colors, there's my items. I can add another answer, another set of matches by clicking this link here. Delete it again by clicking that garbage can. And then I can put additional distractors down here if I want to, so that they have more options than they have terms. And that can kind of just add some additional, make it a little bit more challenging. By the way, this particular question, the students will get partial credit. So if they got 2 out of the 3 right, this one is worth 1 point, so they would get 2/3 of a point. So it will give them partial credit for whatever they get right. Same with this type of question. So this one is a multiple select or multiple answers. So this is going to allow the students to check more than one. So they can check all the ones that are right. If they miss one, they still will get partial credit for the ones that they did select. So this next one is going to be a essay question. And so this, of course, is open-ended. So this would not be graded by Canvas. This is, you would have to go in and read the students' answers and then give them points for it. You'll notice for all of these, the points are up here in the upper right corner. So if I wanted to make this one worth a little more, I could do that, change it to 5 points, click update question, and this one will be worth more. And then this last one is an example of a file upload question. So a lot of math instructors will use this as a way to have students show their work. And so you can have the students have to upload a file. So if I click on my pencil here, you would just put your question here, and then the students, instead of an answer box, would have a little upload file button that they would have to upload their file for. One downside for this is that for whatever reason, and I don't know if maybe it's because they can upload multiple files for an exam, but it doesn't, there isn't a preview in SpeedGrader. You actually just have to download all of the students' responses. So those are the different question types that we have here. So I'm going to pause for just a minute. If there are any questions so far about any settings or any of the question types, go ahead and type that into the chat or question area, and I'll be happy to answer that for you. And in the meantime, I am going to click on a different quiz here. I do want to move on to looking at question groups. So if you're typing a question in, feel free to go ahead and complete it. I'll get to it. But we'll go ahead and look at question groups here. So the quiz that I just created did not have any question groups. It had all of the questions were standing alone by themselves. And what I mean by that, if I click this new question button here, I'm just going to, we'll say this is an essay question, and I'm just going to click update question. You can kind of see how this question here is by itself. It's not in a group. Whereas all of these questions are in groups because you can see the box that contains them. Basically, groups serve a couple of different purposes. So the first is that you can go ahead and set all of your questions in the group to have a certain point value. So they all have to be worth the same amount of points. So I can, when I create my group, I can say how many questions I want to be picked from the question pool in this group for each student, and then how many points I want each question to be worth. If I wanted to, I could have more questions. I could have 8 questions in here, and it's going to randomly pick 4 for each student. So this is a way that you can randomize your test questions so everyone's not getting the same test. It's also going to automatically shuffle your questions. So if you don't want your questions to be shuffled for whatever reason, you're not going to want to use groups. But if you do, and a lot of people do want their test questions to be shuffled, then you'll need to put them in groups. That's the only way to accomplish that. When you first create a group, it's going to always tell you this question group is set to pick more questions than are available. So don't panic about that. It's always going to give you that message until you have, so until I have 4 questions in here, it's going to tell me that I don't have enough questions. So let's come down here and we're going to create a new question group. I'm going to click create new group. I can give the group a name if I want to, or just call it group. We'll just call this group 3. And again, I'm going to say how many questions I want picked and how many points per question. And then I'm going to click create group. Again, I get that warning message. Now, this is another thing that occurs a lot where someone is trying to create questions within a group. So they create their group and then they come down here and click add new question. Well, that'll create a new question, but it's not going to put it in the group. This is going to create a question outside of the group. Now, you can move a question into a group pretty easily if you create it outside of the group just by dragging it and dropping it. But you can also, if you're doing it from the start this way, you can click this plus sign here, and that's going to put a question into the group for you. So I would want to make sure if I've got different questions that are worth different amounts of points, that I would put each type of question, each point value would have its own question group, since they all have to have the same amount of questions. But then from this point, I'm just going to do it the same way that I created a test without groups. So I'd create my question. When I want to create another question, I'll just click the plus sign and keep adding. If you do have a question that you want to put into a group, you can just drag it and drop it, which is nice. That's kind of a new feature. So it allows you to shuffle things around. And also, if you have questions outside of the groups, you can put them into the groups. If at any time you need to edit the group or delete a group, Again, you'll see your group settings over here. So you can edit it by clicking on the pencil. You can delete it by clicking on the little garbage can. And you also can edit the individual questions by just hovering over the question and clicking the pencil within that question. So if there are any questions about groups, go ahead and type that into the chat question area. And if not, I do want to go ahead and talk about test banks. So in Canvas, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but you can create a test bank and you can create a test. You can move questions from the test bank into a test, but you can't do it the other way around. So I can't take these questions that I've already created and put them in a test bank. So what some people do, and I can see why it gives you a little more flexibility, if instead of starting by creating a test, you start by creating a test bank. And then you have the ability to take the questions that you put in the bank and put them into multiple different tests if you need to. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to click on the quizzes tab. And in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the kebab, the 3 dots next to the add quiz button. And the first option here says manage question banks. So I'm going to click on that. So I have several question banks that I've created. You will see, most likely, if you have created tests before, you will see a question bank called unfiled questions. That is any time you delete a test question. Canvas deletes the question from the quiz, but it takes it and puts it into an unfiled questions test bank. That's actually the only way that it's possible to move a question from a test to a test bank is by deleting it from the test. I think that's not the way that they intended it to work, but it does work if that's the only, if you're trying to move a question from a quiz to a test bank, that is one way to do it, by deleting the question, and then it'll pop up in an unfiled questions test bank. But let's go ahead and create, let's say I'm creating a question bank from scratch here. I'm going to click on this add question bank. So let's say that I want to, this is going to be for my chapter 1 test, and I want to create a test bank for chapter 1. Oops, hang on one second, let me. Okay, so I just typed the title and clicked enter. And now to get to the question bank, I'm just going to click on the name of it. And I'm going to click add a question. So I'm going to, just like I would do within a test, click add a question. It's going to look the same. I can do whatever type of question I want, multiple choice, true and false, whatever. I can, let me just type something here so it knows. I'm going to go ahead and click update question, and I will just keep doing that. So I'm going to add a question each time, making sure that I'm putting my points, and you can always adjust that once you move that question into a test as well. So you can go through, create all of your questions within the test bank. And then what you can do is when you are creating a quiz, let me click on quizzes here. Let's say that for this example quiz here, I want to put some questions in this quiz from that test bank. I'm just going to click edit. I'm going to click on questions. And now let me go down to this question group. So if I click edit on a question group, or just even create a new question group, I can click this link to a question bank. And it's going to pull up all my question banks here. So I have this one I just called Chapter 1. Click Select Bank. And now it's going to automatically put questions here into my, the questions from Chapter 1 test bank into this group. So however many questions I have in there, I can select for them all to be chosen, or I can have them randomly selected by changing how many questions are picked from the group. Click Create Group. The other thing that I can do is I can just select individual questions rather than selecting all of this. Is going to choose all the questions or select from all the questions that are in this test bank. Let's say that I have select ones that I want to use. I can click this Find Questions button here, select the test bank that I want to use, and we'll just use this one again. And then I can come through and select all, or just select individual questions that I want, and then add the questions to a question group. Click Add Questions, and now it puts those questions into my question group. So it is kind of a little bit more flexible in that if you did it this way the whole semester and had a question bank for each quiz, then at the midterm or final, it would be very easy to go in and select questions from each chapter test and put them into a midterm or final to make a cumulative exam. So if anyone has any questions about quiz banks, and by the way, there is a detailed video on how to do this in the Canvas Faculty Hub if you need some help after when you're ready to actually try this on your own. Okay, so I do want next to just quickly show you how to moderate a quiz. It's a question that I get a lot because it is a little bit hidden. So first of all, in order to be able to moderate a quiz, you will have to have the quiz published. So once the quiz is published, I can click on the quiz, and I can come here to related items and click moderate this quiz. So what does moderate mean? It means that I need to either give a student additional time on the test, or I need to give them an additional attempt. So if I had a student who had needed an extension or needed extra time, I can click on the little pencil next to the student's name, and I can give an extra attempt here. So if she only had one attempt and something happened and her power went out or something, and I needed to open the test up for her, I would need to give her an additional attempt. I can give her additional time. Most IEPs or accommodations are for extra half, again, time and a half. So I could give, it says how much time each student has, and then I can add the additional time. And then down here, let's say you're not sure if the student needs an additional attempt, or maybe the date has passed and you don't want to have to go in and reopen it for that student. You can actually just check this box. It says manually unlock for the next attempt, and it won't matter just for this student. If the quiz date is passed, she'll still be able to get in there and take it because I've manually unlocked it for her. So if there's any questions about that, go ahead and about moderating a quiz, go ahead and type that into the chat. And while we're in this quiz, I do want to quickly show you what it will look like when you go to grade a quiz in SpeedGrader. So SpeedGrader is where you'll access your students' submissions pretty much for anything. So discussions and assignments also has SpeedGrader. So I'm going to click on SpeedGrader here. And in the upper right-hand corner is my drop-down menu, so I can easily see who has already turned in the quiz and who has not. So right now it's just James Casey and Thiago Fernandez that have turned it in. The others are grayed out. Once I've graded a test, I can see this orange dot will turn into a green check mark to let me know. So basically, most of this has been auto-graded, so I can scroll through and just see how this student did on these questions. But I also need to review any questions that are listed up here in this red bar at the top. If I click on question 2, it's letting me know that this is an essay question, or maybe a file upload question, some kind of question it couldn't grade on its own. And so I can read the student's answer. I can give comments to the student. And then here is where I would put the student's score. And then when I'm done, click update scores. And that's what will put the score into the grade book, as well as notify the student that they have feedback and a grade on the test. Okay, so that is, unless there's any questions on actual quizzes and tests. And again, I'll stay around at the end if there are any additional questions, but that covers basically giving tests, graded tests. So I do now want to take a look at how to set up a survey. So I'm actually going to click on a different course here. So if you wanted to, at any point during your course, maybe do an evaluation or a survey just to kind of find out how things are going, kind of take the temperature of the course, of the students, and see how the course is unfolding, you can use the quizzes tool for this as well. So I'm going to click on edit, and by the way, if you ever click edit on a quiz that has already been taken by some students, you'll get this warning at the top. So this is for a survey, so I'm not concerned about it here, but it can really mess things up if you start changing tests after students have already started taking the test. Okay, so again, you've got your same details. You would want to give directions to the students, give it a title, and then down here under quiz type, we have 2 different types of surveys. So you could do either a graded survey or an ungraded survey. And you can see that if I switch from ungraded to graded, a box pops up where I can put the number of points. For a graded survey, the students will automatically get full credit once they take the survey. So since it's obviously not being graded for being right or wrong, they get that credit. Now, what's cool about this is even for a graded survey, you can still keep the submissions anonymous. So from what I've heard from a lot of instructors, students don't want to do it if they're not going to get points. So they're maybe not going to take the time to take a survey if it's anonymous and no points are awarded. Well, you can say, take the survey, you'll get 5 points, and it is still anonymous. So that's what we're gonna do here. So again, shuffle answers. Now in this case, that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. And a time limit, you've got those options as well. Multiple attempts, you probably would not want to put that for a survey since that would skew your results. But the rest of it works the same, so you can have them have to complete it by a certain date. That would be the until date. It's not going to be available after that time. So some of the things look pretty much the same for a survey. So let's take a look at how the questions work here. So with the questions, it looks exactly like a test. So if I click edit on this question, you're going to notice that here are the answer choices. And so the only difference here is that it's not going to mark it right or wrong. When you look at when you take a look at the answer, sometimes I'll show you what I mean by this. It'll almost look like one of these is a correct answer, but it's not giving any points, so it doesn't really matter. So you would just put your answers in the order that you would want them to be. So here are your different answer choices. Let me add another question here so you can see what it looks like if you're just creating it. So this is where all of your answer choices go. Again, you can delete it if you don't need that many answer choices. And then I'm going to go ahead and click Save. So the cool thing about this is I have this quiz set so that it is anonymous. So I just clicked Speed Grader, and what happens when you click Speed Grader is it's just going to say loading. It never will actually load the Speed Grader page, because if it did, I would be able to see who responded. So the way that you would need to get the responses for an anonymous survey would be by clicking this survey statistics. And this is where you'll be able to see what the students' responses were. So you can see how many students responded each way to each question. It'll still say view in SpeedGrader, but if you click on it, nothing comes up. Now, I have heard from instructors that, well, not from instructors at Camden County College, but just from kind of doing research, that if you're really wanting to find out who responded, even if it's anonymous, you probably could. I mean, at this point in time, I have one student who's responded. This is a fake course, obviously, but if I look in my grade book at who got the 5 points, I can see the only person that got it was James Casey. So obviously he's the one that has done this. So, I mean, it's not foolproof, and if you really wanted to try to figure it out, you probably could, but as long as you're really wanting it to be anonymous, it would be, because once you've got multiple people that have responded, then you won't be able to tell who responded and who hasn't yet, except for, or excuse me, you'll be able to tell who has responded, but not what their responses were. So it's kind of a cool way to give them the incentive to respond without making it so that they aren't going to be honest. If they're afraid you're going to know who they are for responding. So that is surveys. And so that is what I have for you today. If you have any questions about anything that we've gone over, or if there's something that we didn't go over that you were hoping I would cover, or that you have additional questions about, then go ahead and type that into the chat. Again, if you're looking for additional resources on Canvas, you can always go into the Canvas Faculty Hub, and if you click on the recorded webinars tab, you'll see links to, this is the 3 that we've done so far in this series, and all the rest of the ones that we've done for the Fall 2020 e-webinar series. And then we also have got a lot of training. So if you're trying to learn about the new rich content editor, that video is right here. If you are trying to learn more about using Zoom, that video is here. So there's a lot of different resources here that you can access at any time. And I do want to pull up our contact. So of course you can always contact Canvas. This is the support hotline, 24/7, 365. And then if you need to contact us, the e-learning division, it's always an easy way to get a hold of us, distancelearning@camdencc.edu. Rose and I both check that consistently. Okay, so I do have a question here. What if I want to give students 3 extra points on a test for the survey? I don't want the points to show up separately. How do I do that? So one way that you could give extra points on the test is, let me get out of here real quick and I'll pull up my quiz. So there's a couple ways that you could give extra credit points on a test. And one would be there's a Fudge Points area down at the bottom of any of the tests, any quiz. So let me click here. We're going to go back into SpeedGrader for this test. So you'll see down here, it's Fudge Points. So if you wanted to just give a student additional points for doing the survey or for any reason, you could always just put the Fudge Points in here, click update scores. You could even put in the comment that that's why the student got those extra points, was because they did the survey. That's probably the easiest way to do that. I mean, you can always add additional points to an individual question if you wanted to, but that's going to, you know, they may not relate that to the fact that they did a survey. So probably the Fudge Points if that's what you want to do. So then I have another question: can you use a publisher's test bank? So the question is, or the answer is probably. Most publishers have test banks that are compatible with Canvas. So you would just need to ask your publisher if they have Canvas compatible test banks, and if they do, they'll probably, you know, email them to you or send them to you in some way. And then you would just need to go to your settings in the course that you want to put those tests in, and then click on this import course content option on the right hand side. And if you need extra help with this, we'll be happy to help you, because there are different options. So I can't say what type of option. Hopefully your textbook publisher will tell you what type of file it is. A lot of times it's the test banks are a QTI file. You're not going to hurt anything if you import it and it's not the right type of file. It'll just say failed, or it won't say failed, but you won't see any test questions. But yes, most publishers, I think, have Canvas test banks, and it does make things much, much easier than trying to create things from scratch. Okay, so when I make up the survey, do I just make it count for 0 points? Oh yeah, so you could have it be an ungraded survey. So if you're wanting it to not count on, not make the survey itself graded, then when you're selecting the quiz type, just make it an ungraded survey, and then you could just add the extra credit points to the test, to the Fudge Points section, if that makes sense. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Again, I will hang out here if anyone has additional questions. Don't feel like you have to leave. But if you don't have any additional questions, then have a wonderful afternoon, and feel free to contact me if you've got anything that comes up or any questions or issues that you encounter later. All right, thanks, Yami. You do the same. Thank you. Have a great day.